This story is an ancient story told in Eastern Europe and in Russia. It is a story about a young man who was to be married, and he is going to be a groom, and he and his friend have prepared everything, including getting the very slender gold ring to give to the bride. Now, the bride lived far away, so the two men, the groom and his best friend, started walking through the forest to get to the bride's village for the marriage. And the first night, they decided to set up camp near a river. Now, at that river was a tree, a huge, enormous old tree, and one of its roots was sticking up out of the ground, and it almost looked like a bony finger sticking up out of the ground. And the groom took the golden wedding ring from his pocket, and he put it on the bony-looking root of the tree as though it were a finger, and he pronounced the wedding vow, which is, "Behold, you are consecrated to me with this ring, according to the laws of Moshe Yad Israel," according to the laws of Moses in Israel. And he and his friend began laughing. He circled 3 times, saying the same thing over and over again, the marriage sacred contract. And afterward, they were laughing so hard. I thought that was so funny, except all of a sudden the earth started trembling and shivering, and all of a sudden the place where the stick with the ring on it was opened up in a great big zigzag, and a horrible thing they beheld: the corpse of a woman dressed in a long bridal gown. Oh my, they were so shocked, they backed away. She was held together barely in her bones by all the shreds of the silk of the wedding gown. Oh, they said, what do you want of us? And the corpse bride said, "You've done the wedding dance. You've pronounced the marriage vows thrice, and you have put the ring upon my finger. So now we are husband and wife. Now I want my rights as your bride." Oh, no. The 2 men, they ran for their lives. They ran to the bride's village, where they immediately contacted the rabbi. It's the most knowledgeable person in the entire village. And the young groom said, "Rabbi, I have a really important question to ask you. If by some chance you're walking in the woods, one day, and you happen to see a tree root sticking out of the ground that kind of looks, like a bony finger, coming out of the ground, and you happen to have a wedding ring with you, and you put the wedding ring on the root, and you do the wedding dance, and you pronounce the wedding vows, is that a real marriage?" And the rabbi said, "Do you know of such a situation?" "Oh, no. It's just a question my friend and I had. That's all." And just then, a gust of wind came through the rabbi's study, and a clanking sound, and the corpse bride appeared in the doorway, saying, "I lay claim to this man. He has placed this wedding ring," and she showed the rabbi her hand made of bones. "He has pronounced the solemn vow of marriage with me." "Ah," said the rabbi, "well, Soon all the rabbis, dozens and dozens of rabbis of all the surrounding villages, had convened together, and they went into a long meeting while the 2 young men waited and waited, and the corpse bride waited too, saying so gently but firmly, "I want to celebrate my life of my wedding night with my husband." Except Those words scared the poor groom half to death. So the rabbis conferred and they conferred. And meanwhile, the real bride, the human bride, the living bride, arrived and wanted to know what on earth was going on. And her groom explained, well, we were out in the woods, we saw a bony protrusion from the roots of the trees, and I put your wedding ring on that bony protrusion, and I pronounced the wedding vow. Behold, you are consecrated to me with this ring according to the laws of Moshe Yet Israel. Oh, I am so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. And the bride began to weep. She said, my life is over. You've betrothed yourself to a corpse. How could you? Just then the rabbis came out and they announced, we have, we think, reached an understanding. Did you put the gold ring on the finger of the corpse? And did you dance around the corpse 3 times? And did you promise the wedding vow in its entirety? The groom said, I did. And the young bride, the living bride, wept. And the corpse bride was thinking, well, maybe I'll have my life and my wedding night at last. The rabbi said, well, here's the thing. Since you did put the wedding ring on the finger of the corpse bride, and since you did dance 3 times in a circle, reciting the wedding vows, we have determined that this does constitute a proper wedding. This ceremony is sealed. You could hear across the villages practically the sigh of people's astonishment and horror. But then the rabbis announced, but even so, we have determined to something else that is more true than the wedding ceremony, and that is that the dead shall have no claim upon the living. Oh, the men wiped their mouths. The women cried regardless. The young bride said, oh, thank goodness. The corpse bride, however, said, oh no, my last chance for a real life. I'll never have my dream. It's gone forever now. And she collapsed onto the floor in a clank and tinkles of her bones. And it was truly pitiful. A heap of bones all wrapped with tattered wedding lace and silk, just laying there. But the young bride, the living bride, was overcome with pity, and she knelt down and she gathered up all the bones and all the torn silk, carefully arranged them all in order, and holding the corpse bride close, she said, no, don't worry, I'll live the dreams. For us, I'll live the hopes we have. I'll have the children we wanted. I'll have enough children for the 2 of us, and you rest, knowing that our children and our children's children will be loved and cared for and will never forget us. And the bride tenderly closed the eyes of the corpse bride and held her so gently and slowly, in almost like a step from a wedding march, she went down to the river, this fragile bundle, and laid her down in the shallow grave where she had come, and crossed her little arms across her bony chest and folded the wedding gown around her and whispered, rest, rest now. I will live the dreams. Don't worry, I will never forget you. And the corpse bride was at peace. And she somehow knew she would be fulfilled through this young living woman who could see past all the things that occurred that were difficult and horrifying, scary, that she could see that life could come even from this, even from the darkness. And so she covered over gently with earth and planted flowers over the grave and stones all around, each one carefully selected to commemorate that here lay one who had great hopes that would now be carried on by the living. So you see, Corpse Bride is a story that's based on actual circumstances long ago, when there was grave anti-Semitism. Often bands of thugs would waylay a wedding party, and the bride would be the first to bear the future generations, and so they would kill her first. And then her people would bury her in her wedding gown. But in this story, which has that as a historical basis, also a story about a part of ourselves as women that had all the hopes and dreams and instincts and insights and the ability to see and hear in the dark, that was placed in another kind of darkness altogether, a darkness of deadness rather than a darkness of illumination and sight and hearing of the small, beautiful, gem-like things of this earth, as well as the beautiful life force that lives in every creature and every soul. And so, like the corpse bride who coughed and coughed up dirt clogs when she first rose up out of the grave, she finally could speak her piece. And that's our story too, that whoever of us has been taken down to the grave by those who feared that we would generate new ideas, a new life, new innovations, new insights, no matter what, is a breaking of the silence, even though it's frightening at first to say, no, I still have hopes, I still have dreams, I still want life, regardless of what has occurred to me. That there's another side of our nature, the medial woman who says, good, thank you for telling me. I will live this out now. I will take all the hopes, the dreams, all the gifts, and I will unfurl them and unfold them in every direction. You who were so confined and so drained, rest now. Rest. I will take it the rest of the way. And that is the story of how the medial woman comes back to life. She who can see in the dark, just like the living bride could see way past all the consternation and all the horrification of the villagers, into the dream that the corpse bride still carried for bringing life into the world, for living dreams, for having hopes again.